The drama surrounding Jake Paul's search for a new opponent after the collapse of his bout with Gervonta Tank Davis has quickly spiraled into one of the wildest stories in recent boxing memory. What was supposed to be a hyped Netflix boxing showcase has turned into a spectacle of chaos, rumors, and disbelief, especially after reports surfaced that Paul's team had reached out to none other than Francis Ngannou, the former UFC heavyweight champion and one of the most feared punchers on the planet. The idea of Jake Paul stepping into the ring with a 260-pound powerhouse whose fists have dropped world champions left fans, pundits, and even veteran fighters shaking their heads in disbelief. It was the kind of matchup that made even Joe Rogan stop mid-sentence and call it what everyone else was thinking: insane. When the Davis fight fell apart due to Tank's legal troubles, Paul's promotional team, MVP, scrambled to salvage their November event. Millions of dollars had already been poured into marketing, logistics, and streaming arrangements. Sponsors had signed contracts, venues were booked, and broadcasters had carved out airtime. To lose the date entirely meant an enormous financial hit. So, in their desperation, MVP started scanning for replacements who could draw equal or greater attention. Names like Nate Diaz and Ryan Garcia briefly floated through discussions, but one call in particular changed the tone entirely. Francis Ngannou, fresh off his crossover bouts with Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua, received a call from Jake's team asking if he'd be willing to step in. For a brief moment, the internet lost its collective mind. Ngannou, though, wasn't amused. When he heard the proposal, his first reaction was confusion. Why him? Why now? The call, he said, made no professional sense. Here was a man who'd fought the best in the heavyweight division being asked to take on a social media boxer whose biggest wins came against undersized MMA retirees. According to Ngannou, the conversation turned awkward fast. Numbers were mentioned, reportedly large ones, but Ngannou brushed it off. For him, it wasn't about the money. It was about the mismatch, about the optics of moving from fighting Tyson Fury to Jake Paul. In his eyes, it wasn't just absurd, it bordered on disrespect. The absurdity wasn't lost on anyone. Commentators like Michael Bisping and Daniel Cormier couldn't help but laugh at the leap Paul's team had made. Just weeks earlier, Jake had been preparing for Gervonta Davis, a lightweight who fights around 135 pounds. Now, he was supposedly entertaining a bout with Francis Ngannou, a man who outweighs him by nearly 130 pounds and could punch through concrete. The transition from the smallest possible opponent to one of the largest in combat sports was so extreme that Bisping called it the most ridiculous matchmaking rumor he'd ever seen. Even if it was a publicity move, he said, it made Jake look unserious, a showman chasing headlines rather than a boxer pursuing growth. Cormier's warning was more direct. He reminded fans that Ngannou's punching power isn't theoretical, it's proven. He's folded world-class fighters with a single shot. He nearly floored Tyson Fury and forced Anthony Joshua to fight with surgical precision just to survive. If Jake Paul ever truly stepped into the ring with Francis, Cormier said, it wouldn't just be a bad idea, it would be dangerous. The risk far outweighed the reward. Jake might think he's built differently, but one clean Ngannou shot could end the conversation before it begins. Even Chael Sonnen, never one to shy away from hyperbole, found the entire scenario fascinating in a bizarre way. To him, Jake's audacity was both entertaining and foolish. He pointed out that when Ngannou fought Tyson Fury, it took only one flush punch to put Fury, a 6 feet 9 inches, 270-pound world champion, on the canvas. If that's what one shot did to a reigning heavyweight champion, what would it do to Jake Paul, a cruiserweight influencer with a handful of pro fights? Sonnen didn't deny that it would sell tickets. In fact, he said he'd watch it with morbid curiosity. But from a sporting standpoint, it would be a spectacle, not a competition. The kind of circus fight that critics use as ammunition whenever they claim Jake is bad for boxing. That's the heart of the problem. Jake Paul has fought for years to shed the label of YouTuber turned boxer. He's beaten names like Tyron Woodley and Anderson Silva, and has positioned himself as a disruptor bringing new audiences to boxing. But every time the sport starts to take him seriously, rumors like this pull him backward. Calling out Francis Ngannou, a man twice his size, twice as experienced in combat, and infinitely more dangerous, doesn't look bold. It looks like a stunt. Analysts are beginning to question whether Jake has reached the limits of what spectacle can accomplish. Tim Bradley took the conversation in another direction, focusing on the business fallout of the Tank Davis cancellation. He called it one of the most expensive mistakes in modern boxing, with reports estimating that as much as $40 million in potential revenue evaporated overnight. Networks hesitated, sponsors backed out, and the entire event collapsed. For Bradley, this wasn't just about Jake Paul. It was about how fragile the boxing business has become. When one fighter's reputation implodes, everyone who invested pays the price. Meanwhile, those inside the sport caution that Jake's team could make an even bigger mistake if they rush into another fight out of desperation. Accepting a heavyweight on short notice, even for spectacle, could destroy the momentum Jake has carefully built. A loss to Ngannou wouldn't just bruise his ego, it would crush his brand. The image of a confident, marketable crossover athlete would instantly shift to one of recklessness and overreach. Promoters close to MVP know that one bad choice could unravel everything. Still, the conversation keeps going because it's irresistible. The idea of Jake Paul, internet celebrity turned fighter, staring across the ring at Francis Ngannou, the scariest man in combat sports, feels like something out of a video game. The size difference, the power gap, the sheer absurdity of it all make it impossible to ignore. It might not be real boxing, but it's undeniably drama. And drama sells.